Turn of events, Sri Lankan people have voted for change. Anura Kumara Dissanayake, the leader of the Janatha Vimukthi Peramuna, has been elected as Sri Lanka's next president after the first election since Sri Lanka's economic crisis. He managed to secure 42.3% of vote share this presidential election. So viewers, who is Anura Kumara Dissanayake? Well, he was born into a lower middle class family in Thambutegama village in Anuradhapura district, around 170 kilometers away from the country's capital, Colombo. He joined the JVP's anti-government armed uprising between 1987 and 1989 against the regime of then-President Jayawardene and Premadasa. He was the national organizer of the Socialist Students Association in 1995 and later appointed to JVP's Central Working Committee as well. In 1998, he became a member of JVP's political bureau. In 2000, he became a member of parliament. His party JVP rose to prominence in the 2004 presidential polls after forming an alliance with Mahinda Rajapakse's United People's Freedom Alliance. Dissanyake's JVP had denounced the Tamil-origin estate workers from India as an instrument of Indian expansionism. He also opposed any attempts to give back the Kachachivu island to India. Dissanyake's political charisma was evident in the 2010 elections when he was re-elected to parliament despite the JVP experiencing electoral setbacks. In 2015 parliamentary polls, in demonstration of his widespread popularity, Dissanayake contested and won from Colombo district. Later, in fact, he also served as the chief opposition whip in parliament. In 2019, Anura Kumar became the founder and leader of the Socialist Coalition JJB and also became the alliance's presidential candidate. Now, while his performance during the elections was not scintillating, the alliance and its leader garnered massive political support as a result of their role in spearheading the protests against then-President Gotabaya Rajapakse. Dissanyake's leadership is also associated with a generational shift in the party under which significant overhaul has taken place, keeping in mind its ambitions in mainstream democratic politics. The move away from radicalism and the revised focus on democratic socialism and social justice and anti-corruption stance paved the way for increasing popularity of JVP. Now, when it comes to his predecessors, Rajapakse fled the country during the Sri Lankan 2022 economic crisis. On the 2nd of September 2022, he returned to Sri Lanka, ending his 52-day self-imposed exile. Meanwhile, President Wickremesinghe rose to the Sri Lankan top office in July 2022, not winning a national election but through an extraordinary parliament vote. He replaced Gotabaya Rajapakse, who fled the country and resigned amidst mass protests triggered by severe financial meltdown. Sri Lankan Supreme Court found him guilty of delaying elections amidst the economic crisis. The election results, the first major win for the JVP, also herald a new era for the party, which has radically transformed itself and let go of its extreme left ideologies like the abolition of private property since entering mainstream democratic politics. Well, joining us at this point is Rohan Gunaratna, strategic affairs expert. We also have Rohan Hettiarachi, Executive Director, People Action for Free and Fair Elections, live with us. Professor Madhav Nalapat, Editorial Director of the Sunday Guardian, is joining us live. Veena Sikri, former diplomat, is also live with us. Iran Vikramaratne, Sri Lankan MP and former State Finance Minister, is also live with us. Chandima Virakodi, Sri Lankan Member of Parliament, also joins us live. So we have quite an exhaustive panel today. Let me begin with you first, Mr. Virakodi. Your first assessment of what has led to this change in Sri Lanka. Mr. Virakodi, can you hear me? Okay, I think we are having some trouble there with this connection. Mr. Vikramaratne, let me go across to you. What do you believe has led to this result in your presidential polls?
I think it was an unusual presidential poll. It was a vote against the establishment. It was a reactionary vote. It was anger and resentment that very little had been done about corruption over the past couple of decades. There have been many scams and people in office have been implicated in these scams. Then the lack of the rule of law. There was an Easter bombing and people haven't been brought to justice. And therefore, it was in that sense a vote against the established parties and established politicians. So I think people expressed themselves. The positive of it is it was a peaceful election and it highlighted the importance of democracy and that was I would say the plus point in it. So many challenges ahead, but the change has happened we have a new president who is sold his story. On one hand, it was the anger and resentment and that wave he rode, and on the other hand, he has presented a program which says, I will go after the corrupt, I'll clean up the system, I'll establish the rule of law, and I think that won him a majority. It's the first time a president has been elected with under 50% of the vote. However, he has obtained about 42% of the total vote.
Right. Mr. Vikramanatha, also just tell us a bit about Dissanayake, what he stands for, and which direction do you believe he's going to take Sri Lanka in now?
I think that he has come, as I said, he rode a wave. There was an anger and resentment, and then he made some promises on cleaning up the system and being anti-corruption. And I think on that score, I think he will move, and he should move, and he will move. Even though we are in the opposition, we will also give him maximum support in cleaning up the system and in making sure the judicial process works. It has to be through the rule of law. It can't be political victimization. That we will oppose, but it has to be the rule of law. So on that side, I think he will move ahead. He's making appointments to secretarial positions at the moment. By tomorrow, maybe his cabinet will be known as well. I think his challenges are going to come on the economy, because given their track record of being a very extreme socialist party, never really been in office. Some of them served in a previous administration for a while. So they are more bent towards the closed rather than the integrated economy, and the world has opened up. There's globalization, integration. India and South Asia is growing. We need to seize the opportunities. We need to integrate. We're a small island nation with a small market. Then we have to. There has to be confidence, because markets, as work on confidence, and that will be a big challenge. To instill confidence that we can actually make the changes, that we will open up the economy, we'll liberalize. So these are going to be some of the challenges. We have an IMF program in place, and we have a debt restructuring which needs to be done. After 2 years, we haven't reached complete agreement with some of the bondholders. So these are some of the challenges that we will face.
Absolutely. Let me also get in now Ambassador Veena Sikri for her take on this. Ambassador Veena Sikri, what do you make of the election result and the outcome that it's thrown up?
I think, first of all, we must congratulate the government of Sri Lanka, the people of Sri Lanka. They have held a completely free and fair election, very large amount of enthusiastic participation. And I think that Anura Kumara Dissanayake has won fair and square. He's got the majority of the vote, and I think all the people of Sri Lanka should rejoice in that. Of course, we do know that the President Dissanayake has a very revolutionary past, a Marxist-Leninist past, and he has led insurgencies against Sri Lanka, within Sri Lanka in the past. He has led insurgencies against the Indo-Sri Lanka Peace Accord, against the 13th Amendment, and so many other issues. But I think that ever since the JVP has had this broader coalition and now become the NPP, the National People's Power, I think he is showing a very, very broad-minded approach to issues, including the economy within Sri Lanka and to relationships with the neighboring South Asian countries. He was in India earlier this year as the guest of the Indian government, and he has met all our leaders. And yesterday, as soon as the election results were declared, the Indian High Commissioner was the first to meet him and congratulate him on his election and his appointment as a new president of Sri Lanka. So India indeed does look forward to a very dynamic and active relationship with the new president of Sri Lanka. We've seen ourselves in India that sometimes revolutionary parties or underground parties like the Mizo National Front, they come over ground, they join the mainstream, they win elections, they become the chief minister of the state, not only for 1 term but 2 terms or 3 terms, and so it's all very well. So I think that we can look forward to President Anura Kumara Dissanayake having a very, very strong relationship with all the countries. In fact, today morning, his statement after his swearing in was that nobody can do it alone. Whether it is the economy or whether it is the situation in South Asia, he has asked for cooperation cooperation of all the countries. And even within Sri Lanka, he's asked for cooperation of all the communities, the Sinhala community, the Tamil community, the Muslim community, and all the communities of Sri Lanka. So he has begun on a very positive and good note, reaching out to all groups and communities within Sri Lanka and within South Asia. And I certainly think that this augurs well for a new start in Sri Lanka. The economy is going to be a challenge, I very much agree on that, because the IMF is not known to be very forgiving in its conditionalities, and that does affect very often the poorer sections of the community. But I think that, India has always shown its readiness to stand by Sri Lanka, and India has helped them strongly and unstintingly when the economic crisis first broke, and we've unstintingly given them help in terms of credits, in terms of loans, in terms of the Maitri vaccine, which went in large numbers, and in any other aspect on which Sri Lanka needed help. We do believe that in the Brotherhood of South Asia, we are all there for each other, to stand by each other, and to carry forward together in mutual benefit and mutual growth and prosperity.
Yes, Professor Madhav Nadapath, come in here, because this was a very crucial election for Sri Lanka, given the fact that it was the first of its kind after the economic crisis and the unprecedented protests that we saw as well. What do you make then of the results, and what does it say of the direction Sri Lanka is headed?
Well, I'd like to congratulate former President Ranil Wickremesinghe on a very well conducted election, and if I may say so, the Election Commission of Sri Lanka and the people of Sri Lanka for doing it so peacefully. And I think Ranil has shown that he is a complete democrat, and he has bowed out very gracefully, and you have got the new president. Now, the fact of the matter is, I'm not really, very concerned about the new president. I quite agree with Ambassador Sikri that there is no option for all of us in South Asia except to be friendly with each other. We have all seen the example of what's happened in Pakistan and what is now happening in Bangladesh as a consequence of bad relations. Bangladesh now, there's been a reversal of course. Once again, Hilsa exports have been given, and in Nepal as well, there's been a change of course. I don't expect any problems regarding Sri Lanka. I want to point out a very interesting thing. The Sri Lankan Sinhala society, it's a very wonderful society, a Buddhist society largely, and an extremely, if I may say so, a very vibrant group of people, Sinhalas. And you have got the Goigamas and the Salegamas. And the Goigamas are supposed to be the aristocracy. Of course, there are a large number of them. And the Salegamas are supposed to be the non-aristocracy. If I'm not mistaken, the new president is for Goigama, and the former president, not Ranil, but the Rajapaksas were, I don't think they were Goigamas. So the reality is that, once again, we must understand that it's not a very simple question of elitism and Marxism. It's also a complex society, and in this complex society, the new president has handled the situation very well, handled the system very well, but his big challenge is going to be, how does he manage to ensure that the people of Sri Lanka get the economic growth they deserve? And they are a wonderful, vibrant people. They should get that economic growth. Now, for example, many international universities could set up there. Many international companies could form there. But for all that, you have to throw your theory out of the window and talk about praxis. And the practice will have to be encouraging investment, encouraging exports, encouraging tourism, making Sri Lanka tourist friendly. You're seeing the Maldives, what a horrible dive in tourism was taken as a consequence of Muizu and Muizu's effort at course correction, which is not successful very much so far. The people of Maldives are still suffering the impact of the person they voted in. So there should not be buyer's remorse in Sri Lanka, and the people of Sri Lanka should not have remorse that instead of Ranil, a tested pair of hands, they chose a younger man as the president. But in my view, I have every expectation, given his competence, given his capability, that he will handle the ship of state very well. And I have every confidence, as Ambassador Sikri was saying, that India-Sri Lanka relations will be on a good track. It's good for India, it's good for Sri Lanka, it's good for South Asia. And as I said, any country, including India, we have to be learned to get on with each other and be friendly with each other in the neighborhood where South Asia is concerned. Thank you then.
Okay, let me in fact also quickly get in Rohana Hetriachi's perspective on what do you believe the factors were that have led to this performance for Dissanayake, have led to this big victory for him in these polls?
Maybe he can't hear.
Mr. Hetriachi, can you hear me? Okay, I think we are having some trouble there with this connection. Let me join Rohan Gunaratna then for the same points on the X factors which you believe contributed to this performance for Dissanayake, and what do you believe he's going to be focusing on in his tenure?
There was a wave of unhappiness when the economy started to crumble, and with those protests, the large-scale protests, Anura Kumara Dissanayake, the JVP, and the new alliance that he created, the NPP, amassed a lot of support. So in many ways, he was very strategic that instead of getting the JVP, which is known for being a Marxist-Leninist party, he created a party that would appeal to the centrist. And those people joined the NPP. What is important to understand is that Anura Kumara Dissanayake is still talking about class struggle. But it is so important for the JVP elements to go beyond that in order to build a government that is going to work. Second point is that it is very important for them to maintain strict discipline and also build relationships with other parties, because JVP itself doesn't have the intellectual capital to run the country.
Yes, yes, absolutely. But what is he going to be focusing on, and which direction are India and Sri Lanka relations going to head, Rohan?
India and Sri Lanka, firstly, India was very strategic. In February of this year, the Indian government invited Anura Kumara Dissanayake to visit India, and the Indian leaders met with him. That itself was a huge boost for him. But the Indians recognized that this man is likely to become president. And I believe that itself has given India an advantage to ensure that this party remains mainstream and that this party will consult other parties, other leaders, and bring the best experts, and will not go back to a command economy and will remain the course of a market economy, will value and treasure investment, will work with both the East and the West, will have a multi-directional foreign policy. So the Indian relationship is very crucial in my opinion.
Okay, let me go back across then to Mr. Vikramaratne on that point as well, about which direction you see under Dissanayake the India-Sri Lanka relationship and ties headed. We've seen, of course, earlier today Prime Minister Modi has congratulated the new Sri Lankan President, but which direction do you believe relations will head now?
I think that there is a recognition that we're a small island, we have a small market. Raising the living standards of our people will depend on us actually accessing wider markets. Exports have to be a very important part of the economic strategy. Joining global supply chains will be an important part of the strategy. Despite the Marxist origins of some of the leaders of the NPP, and there are others who have joined the NPP, I'm expecting that the wider perspectives will prevail. And that's only possible with having a foreign policy which is actually global and open. the foreign policy will be, as Rohan Gunaratne said, it will have to be multi-aligned, and it will not in any way threaten the defense of any of our neighbors, because we are geographically so close to some of the other countries, and that recognition is there. And therefore, our relationship with India in particular has been a cultural relationship. It has been an economic relationship, and I don't expect that to suffer. I'm hoping that that relationship will grow, despite there being challenges from the past, with the geopolitics of Asia in the last decade, which we didn't previously have to deal with. So we in the opposition will also be supporting very friendly relationships with the region, and also to Sri Lanka to take its place, particularly in regional institutions.
Okay, let me in fact quickly also then ask Professor Nalapat for a quick word. I'm almost out of time, but where do you see the two nations' ties headed, sir?
Look, I'd like to say, Uday, that there is no choice for India or Sri Lanka. As Sri Lanka knows very well, if, for example, you have a spy ship of a country that's now an enemy of not just India, but the United States, the Western world, and several other countries in what is now called Cold War 2.0. And in that situation, if you allow a spy ship to come into your waters, and quite frankly, I was disappointed in the Rajapaksa clan, because they, at least one of the brothers, I'm not going to name the brother, he was hand in glove with the CCP, and he made Sri Lanka virtually another Pakistan, a satellite of the CCP. And that is not to the advantage of Sri Lanka, for a simple reason that you're seeing the economic development of China. There is only one direction it is taking, and that is down. And it's going to continue to be down because of Cold War 2.0. So I think the new president will read the tea leaves, will understand future is important. He's still a relatively young man compared to, for example, Ranil, and he has got decades of political life to go. And this decade, the last decade, this decade where this Cold War is intensified, and you've just seen the US announcing tech sanctions on China and Chinese companies. India, of course, was the first to ban TikTok. And I'm very frankly, in this is a situation where you're either with the communist Chinese or you're with the democracies. And if you're a democracy, you should be with the democracies. There's no question about it. And I think the new president is a pragmatic individual. He understands the tea leaves. He understands that it's not just
absolutely,
India.
Absolutely, Professor Nalapat. I'm going to have to quickly intervene there, sir. I'm going to have to quickly intervene there because we've run out of time. But I believe a guest has just joined us now. I'll take a quick reaction for you, Rohana Hettiarachchi. I tried to bring you in here earlier, but I don't know if you were there with us or not at that point. Rohana, your quick interpretation of this election outcome and what it means for Sri Lanka going ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Take me here, but my voice has gone because of this talking lot during election period. But I think you can hear me. I think this is the peaceful elections ever had in Sri Lanka in my history in the last 30-40 years. We are really happy the election environment throughout the election period, even the post-elections period so far. This is the first time we use this campaign finance ceiling also. A lot of candidates, they will respect the law of the land, they respect the elections law and the guidance given by the Elections Commission. Apart from these misuse of government resources and the power, I think rest of the issues are quite all right here. We can't conclude this as a free and fair elections, but it's the peaceful elections we ever had in Sri Lanka. So as an observer group, we are happy, and I'm sure that all the international community also accept that that this was the peaceful elections ever we had in Sri Lankan history.
Yes. What does it say for India-Sri Lanka relations moving ahead, Mr. Hettiarchi?
I think, I mean, as one of your colleagues also mentioned, there is no way, because Sri Lanka has to deal with all our regional countries, because India is our the close friend, and we are very close neighbors. So we have to work together, because Sri Lanka is in a big crisis. I can remember, and also we need to appreciate that during COVID period, even this economic crisis, the India has played the biggest role to support Sri Lanka, given this restructuring process with IMF. So I'm sure that India and Sri Lanka relationship will be more important, and it will be a more strong relationship under the new government also. But at the same time, we have to maintain the equal relationship with the other regional countries and the entire world, because we are in big economic crisis. So we have to play equal. We have to treat equally with all other countries, and we have to negotiate. We have to work with all other countries. But I'm sure that India-Sri Lanka relationship should be much strong in coming days.
Yes. Okay. Let me get a quick closing comment from Ambassador Sikri as well. Ambassador Sikri, the road ahead for India-Sri Lanka.
Thank you. I think the road ahead is very positive. I'm very glad to see the very positive assessment of India-Sri Lanka relations given by all our colleagues from Sri Lanka who have joined your panel, your very eminent panel. And I think they're very realistic and positive, because we want to carry forward the mutually win-win situation that we try to create with all our neighbors, that it should be mutually beneficial. It must improve the economy of Sri Lanka. It must give them good returns for the people. And even when we had the India-Sri Lanka FTA, it is still there. We hope it will re-dynamize and reactivate itself, that we will be able to get back to a very dynamic relationship. Tourism has already picked up. India is playing a big role in the improvement of tourist arrivals in Sri Lanka, and this has been a big factor in the increasing revenues of the Sri Lanka government. But side by side with this, there's so many others, development of plantations, infrastructure, and others. And I'm quite sure that the new president will have a very broad-minded, positive role on this, and will look at building up on what has already been done by previous governments, under President Ranil Wickremesinghe, and carrying that forward to the benefit of both peoples and both countries.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.